And there's always this thing, right? And I think even our parents had said it over the years, you always want to go before your kids go and this whole thing. I don't know if I agree with that. I'll stick around as long as I can, folks. Again,
Yeah.
coming from someone with no kids. Welcome to the Old Brother Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith.
How's it going tonight, Dan?
Seems like we've been like on hiatus for 3 weeks or a month or something, right? It seems like it's been a while, but
Yeah, you were on spring break, but
we were
we
still
still
putting
had
out content.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're still on our road to conclude the Oscar nominated Best Picture films.
Does this show you there's too many movies or what?
I think it's a pretty good indication. Yeah. So the Oscars, of course, have come and gone. And this is our second to last. This would be what the penultimate brother Oscar review
There
that
was
we're
a big
doing.
announcement yesterday that they're moving the Oscars. It's been in the Kodak Theater for 20 some odd years, and now they're moving it to a bigger venue because the Kodak Theater only holds 3,000 people. I've been there.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people that get nominated, they're up in the balcony, especially if they're a technical or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that came out a bit ago, and also the fact that in a few years it's going to be on YouTube now, the ceremony.
Right.
But let's not go down a rabbit hole with the
No.
Oscars. Never mind. We already did an episode on that. You can go back and check that out on the YouTube channel. We're at the point of reviewing Hamnet, and then we will conclude with our review of Marty Supreme. That'll be the last one that we have to get through. We had just done the episode reviewing The Secret Agent, which I think, was a pleasant surprise for both of us. We really didn't know what to expect with that film going in, but it was quite enjoyable, quite original. And Hamnet, this is a Golden Globe Best Picture winner, and Jessie Buckley won the Best Actress
Both.
for
Yeah.
both the Golden Globes and then the Oscars.
Yeah. This is one of the films, though, if it was 5, wouldn't make it on my book.
I
And
disagree
I
with that.
liked it.
I disagree with that. Yeah,
Okay. I
but that's
liked it.
good. That's been your whole. I should just cut and paste your reviews into these episodes now
Well,
because it's the
n
same
because
thing
when
every
you
time.
criticize something because you're gonna think the stuff I bring up is real nitpicky, but, I wanna make sure people know I liked the film. It's not about that. It's just there was 5 better films.
Well, when you come in with low energy, Mike, I usually know it doesn't bode well for the film we're talking about.
I don't even know why you say I'm low energy.
I don't know. You seem somber, but no, I enjoyed the film. Now, this is one where I think the like all the things leading up to it, the promotion, the things that I had seen anyways, and certainly just the still images in the promotional material, it almost was coming off to me as some like Harlequin romance type of
Yeah.
scenario for those that get the reference. But it wasn't that at all. I was quite fascinated to find out more about Maggie O'Farrell, who wrote the novel that the film is based upon.
Right, which that's important to point out that
Mhm.
this is actually a work of fiction. Although there's elements, Shakespeare had 3 kids. One of them was named Hamnet. All sorts of details are real, but the
Mhm.
story itself is not. It's fiction.
Right. But it's a fascinating fictionalized story based around, as you said, a sprinkling of some,
Right.
real details of, historical fact. But this book uh, uh, was based out of her. She also had a memoir from 2017. I don't know if you read that, Maggie O'Farrell, called I Am," and some, talking about some of her own personal experiences that she went through, I think losing a pregnancy and some other things that are certainly influential elements in the story that you see here in Hamnet. But the fact that, and you can set it up if do you want to give kind of just a synopsis of the film itself?
Yeah, it's basically we meet William Shakespeare and his soon-to-be wife, Agnes, which her real name was Anne Hathaway, which I
Mhm.
found kind of funny. And I
Mm.
had to look up Anne Hathaway, the modern actress, to see did she change her name? And no, she was born Anne Hathaway.
Mhm.
But um, they become a couple very quickly in the beginning. He's infatuated with her. They get married pretty quickly, have 3 kids, Hamlet, Hamnet, and I forget the daughter's name.
Well, no, 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 no.
Judith?
No, no, no. It's Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith.
Okay,
There is no
okay.
Hamlet.
There is no that's right, that's
Right.
right.
Mike making up a 4th kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Mike fictionalizing the fiction.
So they have 3 kids, and the 2 boys, one of them dies, and they're
Well,
dealing with that
there's 2
loss.
girls and a boy. I just said
Actually, it's 2
Susanna.
boys and a girl.
No, it's Susanna, Judith, and Hamnet in the film.
I something's off. Either Shakespeare really had 2 sons, not 2
Right,
daughters.
right. Whatever the case, he had some kids, folks.
Yeah,
Let's not
and
get in
one
the
of them
weeds.
died,
Yeah, we don't need the
tragically.
whole genealogy of the
No,
kids.
but
Right,
it is kind of important.
right, right. Now, so what we do know is that Hamnet died at 11 in 1596.
Which is just fact.
Right, and which is relevant in terms of trying to draw a connection here because Hamlet, the play, was written in around 1600.
Yeah, in
So
the
it
same
it
window.
right, so it's completely plausible to believe that the play was based on this experience that he went through losing his young son, which this is let me just take a minute because this one of our favorite actresses, Emily Watson, is in the film and plays Shakespeare's mother, Mary.
There was another film, she played the mother of Paul Mescal, who plays Shakespeare.
Oh, right. I think I saw that in an interview they were talking about. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Paul Mescal, of course, playing Shakespeare. And then Jessie Buckley, I kind of mentioned at the top, who won Best Actress.
Mhm.
Now see why she
Right.
won it. I had,
And you remember when I talked about it, her
yeah,
reactions?
I do. I
Does that
do.
kinda make
It
sense?
does. And
Yeah,
kind of bring that back into the conversation when we get a little further into it. But Emily Watson is in the film, as I said, playing Shakespeare's mother, and there's a sequence where she's talking to one of the other kids, and this is after, again, spoiler alert, Hamnet dies, okay?
right.
And I just wanna read this because I found it so powerful and really sort of sums up the film for me, okay? So
Yeah.
just bear with me as I read this
Where
quote
did you
from the film.
find this?
It's from the film. This
Okay.
is a
A line
dialogue that she
by
has
her character.
by
Okay.
her character, correct.
Okay.
And so it's, quote, "What is given may be taken away at any time. We must never let our guard down, never take for granted that our children's hearts beat, that they draw breath, that they will walk and speak and smile, argue, play. Never forget for a moment that they may be gone." And then that cuts immediately to a shot of Hamnet, this close up, I think, on Hamnet. And that's, I think, a lot about what the film is. It's really, now we're not parents, so we can't speak from that experience, but I can only imagine what the loss of a child would do to the relationship of the couple, of the
Right.
partners. I
Right.
can't certainly put myself in that position, but we've experienced loss and have grieved and all of those kind of things. But this is a whole different animal here that you're
An
dealing with.
11-year-old kid
An
is
11-year-old
just
to boot, right,
yeah.
right, and there's always this thing, right, and I think even our parents had said it over the years, "You always wanna go before your kids go," and this whole thing. I don't know if I agree with that. I wanna stick around as long as I can, folks. Again,
Yeah.
coming from someone with no kids, but that to me stands out as a very powerful part of this whole story. right? And again, that taps into Maggie O'Farrell's own personal experience, which is why I think it's even more powerful. And we didn't mention directed by Chloé Zhao, who we've done a couple of her films. We've done
No Man Land.
Nomadland,
Yep.
and then we did Eternals, which we were trying to quickly forget about, as I think
Right.
she was. But
Yeah. She's one of 4 women who have been nominated more than once as Best Director.
what an amazing directorial effort here on Hamnet. It was fantastic. But that to me, I don't know about you, that's really what sums it up. I think it's about
But yeah,
that
it's
because
I remember that line. It was so in your face.
and let me ask you this too, Mike. So going back to a previous episode we did in the Oscar reviews on sentimental value, which was one of 2 that was up for best international feature as well, which it won. Right? We talked about that. And I spoke on that episode about a quote from Stellan Skarsgård's character, Gustav, as I recall. And he was talking about uh because again in that episode, go and watch it, folks, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, etc. And he's talking about how artists need liberty. They need this certain degree of freedom as a
Mhm.
creative, right? And in that case, it had a very detrimental impact on the relationship between he and his daughters. In this case, I wondered, I don't know if I'm not saying you made the connection between sentimental value, but it struck me here that Shakespeare, who at a certain point in the film is traveling off to London. In fact, Agnes or Annis, as I think they pronounce it, right? It's almost like Anne and Agnes together is a very specific way they pronounced it.
Yeah.
But we'll just say Agnes. She's very supportive of that, right? For him to go to London and pursue his writing and so
Right,
forth.
and write these plays and perform, and he
Yes.
couldn't do it. They live in this remote village.
Mhm.
So really to provide for his family, he needs to do that.
But then I think there's probably a certain level of intoxication that takes place when you're feeding that engine because we see some great sequences of Paul Mescal, who is just so frustrated and like almost dealing with like writer's block or whatever it is that you see him going through on screen at
Right,
home,
but not in London.
but not in London. And that would end up becoming a pretty central point between the 2 of them because Hamnet dies, and guess what? He's not there.
He's away.
He's away.
Right.
And there's this really powerful sequence between the 2 of them on screen, which was not really, uh, it's, very explicitly, it wasn't all on the page. Let me put it that way, right? What you see that plays out in the scene between Agnes and William, it gets physical at one point, and that was unexpected. I learned in some of the interviews with the cast that there's a scene where sequence where she slaps him across the face,
Yeah,
and totally he didn't expect it. And you can tell by his reaction, it's just kind of this natural human instinct to sort of defend
right.
yourself, right? He didn't know that was coming.
Also, Chloé Zhao told him to get drunk in the scenes that he was drunk. So
Oh,
he was really drunk.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Uh, but I wondered if it was this similar thing playing out, right? He's seeking out that liberty that
Mhm.
Stellan's character talks about in sentimental value, and then look at the consequence it has in this case. Right now, he couldn't predict, because he's not like getting a red eye to London and coming back.
Right.
Like, this is huge
He's
days of
months.
months away,
Right.
and so, it isn't that he's not racked with guilt, of course, when he does come back, but it's just an interesting thing that we know, right? This, again, happens in actual relationships. People experience this kind of loss and somebody's not present in whatever form, and it
Right.
can have real significant consequences on the relationship, and now that will culminate and play out in this incredible climax, Mike, at the end of the film, which you alluded to before, which Jessie Buckley. Now, Mike, let's pause for 1 second, okay? Having both been to London, having both been to the Globe Theatre, or at least the recreation of the Globe Theatre, because even the one you see in London is not the original Globe Theatre, that burned
Correct.
down.
And I worked at the Globe Theater that's modeled after that in San Diego.
Right, another replica,
Yeah.
exactly. But Fiona Crombie, I just have to give some kudos to Fiona and that team on the production design team. The recreation of the globe was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You know, from the earth that you're standing on in that structure to just the dimensions and all the details, the
Right.
seating, and it
The
was so
seating, which is like bench seating.
yeah, it was so phenomenal. I can't,
The old Globe in
imagine.
San Diego, they had a main theater that was indoors, but then they had an outdoor theater that was modeled after the old Globe.
Mhm.
And what did they do there? In the summers, they would do Shakespeare.
Yeah,
It
Shakespeare
would
in the
be a
Park
different
type thing.
Shakespeare play every summer.
But that really you have to imagine how that puts you in that world as the
Right.
actors and actresses, right? And so you've got all these incredible extras with this costuming that was just fantastic, these period, costumes. And then you have describe a little bit of what this scene is that I'm referring to. What are we witnessing here?
Where they're performing Hamlet, and you can tell by the way she reacts that she believes what's going on stage, you know what I mean?
Mhm,
She totally loses herself in the play,
mhm.
and I think it's why she won the Oscar. It's such a remarkable sequence to see her. She almost wants to get up and yell at him or get up and be, in the play.
Yeah, but then it becomes very moving, and you can just see this kind of
Correct.
shift in her look and expression and
Exactly.
the emotion without saying anything as you're describing. It's an actor who's portraying, I guess, a fictionalized version of her son, we think,
Yes.
right? That's what we
Yes.
believe to be the case.
Yes.
But we do see Shakespeare himself playing a role in this play. He
Right.
comes out on stage and there's this incredible he's kind of just off stage at one point. While I have to say, I don't have it at the ready, but the actor performing it, wow. Fantastic job he's doing. Really powerful, because it's one thing to say the words of Shakespeare, but to really embody it and sort of understand the right cadence and delivery of it, that's a
Right.
whole nother thing entirely, I think. And so, what a wonderful job this actor did in that performance, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that sequence at the end was just, worth the price of admission. It was so good.
It kind of reminded me of the scene in Braveheart, right? When William Wallace is on the rack and he's about to
Right.
go to his death,
And he's
and
holding
his
a
he's holding a piece of cloth from his wife,
right,
and
who
he
was murdered.
sees her. Now she's already been murdered in the
Right.
film. Spoiler alert. But he sees her sort of ghostly image slowly sort of cascading through the crowd. It's amazing, and it's very similar
Yeah.
to this that we're describing in
And the
Hamnet.
brilliance of that was the fact that instead of showing him decapitated, which, would have been in like a
Yeah.
Halloween movie, you just see his hand
Yes,
release the cloth.
the power of suggestion, yeah, of what's
Correct.
going on. Yeah, we've always said of how that's really that is much more impactful. We talked about that with Michael Ralla, actually, with Sinners. The creative restraint, right? That man, did they get it right in that film? So, we talked about the fact that this won the Golden Globe for Best Picture. Jessie Buckley won at the BAFTAs, and then it was kind of pretty much everybody was saying it was a foregone conclusion she was going to win. Now, I had gone out on a limb and mentioned, Kate Hudson and
Who was
Renata
great.
Reinsva from Sentimental Value, but I had not seen Hamnet yet in all
Right.
full transparency. So, as I've said, I now see why Jessie Buckley took that Oscar home for sure.
Now there's a couple of things I had issues with. This is
Well, yeah,
why
let's get to your
yeah,
nitpicking. Yeah.
which is they used words.
This is good because we love engagement on the YouTube channel, by the way. So this is going to really drum that up, whatever Mike's going to say here.
No, because they use words that weren't in existence. And when you watch a Shakespeare play, and this is like a play on movie, like Shakespeare in Love was the same. It's like watching a play only in movie version. And the language just didn't ring right at some points for me. Like the phrase, as simple as this, Dan, hello. That greeting was not even in existence in the 1590 whatever into the
how did you even get hung up on the word hello is shocking.
Well, there was more. There was so many that came out.
Then you went
and
back.
I'll tell you why, because I've done Shakespeare, right? And whenever you do a play, there's a person, God love them, that's a line reader. And they read every line while you're performing, they read every line. And if you make a mistake, they write it down and they hand it to you at the end of the play.
So they handed you quite a few notes, I would imagine.
They actually did.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when I first started, I was like, I got to fix this. I got to get this. And then it got to the point where I was like, yeah, give me him. I didn't even look at him.
Yeah.
But it came up often, like, okay. She used the word okay several times. It's a word that wasn't in existence. And I don't think I would be picky about that if I hadn't known so much about Shakespeare.
Do you have the historically accurate terminology?
I don't.
Okay, so you just went so far as to criticize what was wrong, but you're not here to educate us on what it should have been. Although I will say, maybe it's just, when you're dealing with Shakespeare and so forth and so on, right? This has to be appeal to a broad audience, and so it might just be that it gets so esoteric that they just.
I agree.
You got to take some artistic license, I suppose.
And again, Shakespeare in Love, Gwyneth Paltrow winning the Oscar, probably shouldn't have, but same thing in that. You got to make it digestible to an audience.
Mike's got a beef with the Goop product line here. I don't know.
No, I love Gwyneth Paltrow.
Mike loves Goop.
The other thing was, did it bother you at all that there was like science fiction in the death of Hamnet? That it was kind of a weird death. Like his sibling, and they were real siblings. I don't know if you know that. The two actors were siblings in real life.
No, you're confusing his real brother. And let's just say for the record, Jacob E. Jupe, who plays Hamnet, wow. What is he? Is he 11 himself? Like, incredible.
Gotta be.
Incredible performance from this young actor. And he's one of these young actors who you see him in interviews, he's way beyond his years and,
Right.
But it's his brother, I believe, that plays another character in the film. But again, the siblings are his two sisters. There's no brother in this. Her brother, his uncle, I guess, or whatever is.
But isn't Judith the one that was sick?
I believe so, yes.
And then Hamnet kind of takes the illness from her.
Right, yeah.
That, I don't know, that was like more sci-fi to me than Shakespeare.
I wouldn't say sci-fi. Again, just artistic license to sort of provide a little bit more heightened drama.
But do you think did it need that? I don't think it needed that.
Well, I think it was it wasn't quite a red herring situation because it's happening all in one sort of sequence, so they're not trying to mislead you.
No, but why not just have him be sick instead of that? I don't know. It felt funny to me.
Yeah, there's something in it about the sort of, the powerful connection between the two of them and the fact that I think because they set up the fact that that was a difficult birth for Agnes, right? Judith.
There's another issue I have where
Okay,
the
you are not the one to be commenting on anything to do with pregnancy or birth on the podcast.
well, I can in this
Unless you've talked
case.
to a licensed physician who is maybe experienced.
Well, let's face it. Okay, when she has her kids, it's kind of like when Native Americans had
I
their
know
kids.
exactly where you're going to go with this now that you're saying it. Go
Right.
ahead. Does this have
The
to do with
kids
an
are
umbilical
born-
cord?
No umbilical cord.
And clean as a whistle, folks.
Clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
Just like in real life.
That did bug me. It wasn't necessarily the cleaning, the cleanliness thing. It was the umbilical cord. Like,
Right.
he's born and then immediately there's no umbilical cord.
Yeah.
And back then they're chomping on it. They got the axe out, whatever. Like,
Right.
but there was nothing.
And they did, women back then did give birth out in the woods. They would dig like a hole.
Sure,
It
yeah.
must have been horrific.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But
God love women out there.
They went to that level where they had her out in the woods, but
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it comes out clean as a whistle.
Yeah,
That
that again, picking nits.
it's picking.
It is, but that particular one stood out to me as well. But I'm like, okay, I just keep my mouth closed. I shouldn't necessarily
Right,
comment.
right.
But you're right. It doesn't seem, the little that we know,
Right.
it didn't seem quite accurate. But I will say that sequence in particular, that birthing sequence, whoa. I mean, that's a pretty powerful sequence between her and Emily Watson in particular, who's there kind of helping, during the birthing process. But Jessie Buckley, now she's a new mother herself. And man, though, does she put herself in what seems like a very excruciating, situation.
Thank God.
Obviously, again, God love all the mothers out there. We're not too far away from Mother's Day coming up, and I can't even begin to sort of tip the hat, but
I can't believe modern day birth, never mind
exactly.
back then.
That's right. No question about it. You get no sort of criticism or judgment here at the Oh Brother podcast. But yeah, I can see some of those nits that you're picking.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And again, like
but
I
the
said,
science
I
fiction
like the
piece,
film.
the science fiction piece with that scene, again, I think because they set up with the challenging birth of Judith, they kind of set it up that she would be the one that, of course, Judith is going to succumb to this.
Right.
Right. Because she was dealing with illness as a young child.
Right.
But
how many stillborns happened in that time?
I think it's the artistry here, right? It's not taking it so literally, but it's Hamnet as a even at a young age, this selflessness that he seems to embody by literally giving his own life for his sister, right?
Right.
And there's a sequence between him and Shakespeare where he's going off to London and he says, "I need you to be brave. Will you be brave for the family?" Yeah, there's some powerful sequences there. So I just think that they, to what degree any of that is fact, he's portrayed as being a very selfless and brave young boy, quite frankly.
And like you said, the kid performances were just off the charts.
All of them. I mentioned, Jessie Buckley, Paul Mescal, of course, Joe Alwyn, who plays Agnes's brother in the film. Emily Watson.
He's kind of like the messenger.
Yeah, and they have a very powerful relationship too, as brother and sister. And he's almost like a mediator between.
Correct. I was going to say he's the peacekeeper.
Yeah, between her, because the parents, Shakespeare's parents, want nothing to do with Anne Hathaway.
No, and
nothing to do.
She gets pregnant, and they're like,
"Not in this house, not in this house." Right, and it's not. She's also portrayed as having these. I don't know what would you say, Mike. This like almost kind of like pagan, like this witchcraft that she gets involved in. I'm not sure how to best describe that, but David Wilmot, who plays Shakespeare's father, is a real nice scene between the two of them. Some great acting. And then again, Susanna, Judith, the siblings there that are played by Olivia Lines, or I think it is, and then Bodie, and I don't think I wrote down the full name there, the actress that plays Susanna. But yeah, all around great performances. Now, Mike, again, we always bring up the ratings on the podcast from
Yeah, I didn't
IMDb.
look
And
at them.
yeah, so IMDb Metascore 84. Okay. And Rotten Tomatoes, the critics percentage there is 87% and 93% from the audience.
Yeah, you know, I think that's because people who go see this are obviously Shakespeare fans. Although I do want to point out the two of us, before we knew anything about the movie and we heard the title, we thought it was some kind of a joke, like
Well,
a
yeah.
can of ham with legs or something. I don't know what I was thinking.
Having just come off Secret Agent, anything's possible,
Right.
with the hairy leg. But yeah, with Hamnet, like I said, now that you bring that up again, it was, I think this was a case where they didn't really do a great job. Just from my own perspective, the things that I saw, I was kind of turned off
Yeah, I
from
thought they
what
were goofing on Shakespeare.
I didn't really know what the hell to think, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. And that's not good. That's a problem.
No,
right? Or
like
maybe it's just my ignorance. It could just be that.
no, I think, and there's a thing that comes up at the beginning, this scroll that comes up that says Hamnet and Hamlet were
Yeah.
used interchangeably and blah blah blah. So like I didn't know that.
If they had called the film Hamlet,
Right.
obviously there's an expectation. Oh, this is the play. And that's been done how many times, right? So,
And it's been done the best by this gentleman.
yes, Olivier.
This is his Criterion box set, by the way.
Yeah, Mike holding up a Criterion box for Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier, who people might know from Marathon Man.
With Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. He was the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, now what does this bump out? You said, like, this hits the trash can for you if it's only 5 Best Picture nominations. So,
I actually, it's interesting you bring that up, but I haven't looked at the 10 and said, these are the best 5.
But this isn't one of them.
I don't think this is one of them. And again, it's probably because I had
Mm-hmm.
higher expectations once I found out what it actually was.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Chloé Zhao got bounced. She was going to do a Star Wars film. It was all set up. And then Eternals happened.
Yeah, we were pretty critical of Eternals, but I think the more I learn about that situation, I just think it was right person, wrong time kind of thing. You know what I mean? I mean, clearly, she's demonstrated with Nomadland in this
Right.
film, at least
Right.
of the 3 that we've reviewed of her films. She's obviously got the goods. I mean, she's a very
She's got the
skilled
chop.
director. Yeah, and it was cool to see. I watched a lot of featurettes, a lot of interviews with the cast and crew, and they all talk about how this environment, this safe environment that she created on set, where I guess at the end of every scene, there was like this rule on set where they all had to dance. Because you think about it, you're
Right,
dealing with
to
young
lighten it up.
kids.
That's right.
You got to lighten it up. There's some heavy, dense material you're dealing with here. And, so I found that pretty interesting, and just how close they got. And I think she even said herself, like, she doesn't have kids, but how impactful and moving it was to witness, particularly the scene I talked about between Agnes and William after the death of Hamnet, where they have
Yeah.
this really physical confrontation. And there's actually, Mike, if you look it up, and for those listening or watching, if you look up on YouTube, there's a great sort of anatomy of a scene of that scene.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
Jessie, Paul, and Chloe walking step by step through that sequence, and
Huh.
all the behind the scenes.
I didn't see that.
It is fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. So, and I have to say this, Mike, too. I feel I have to say about Paul Mescal, because we were also very, very critical of Gladiator sequel. And I realize it's got nothing to do with Paul Mescal, because he is
No,
an
and
incredibly talented actor.
I don't think at the time, we were saying it was anything about him. It
I
was
don't
the
think
same
so.
movie.
Sure. Sure.
That was the
It
problem.
it's
They
just
just reshot the movie
it's
with
yeah,
Denzel Washington and Paul Mescal.
correct. He's just a great actor in a not so great film. But really enjoyed it. Got to learn a little bit more about him and his background. And Jessie Buckley too. We were talking about her because of course we had done a first look on The Bride, and I don't think we're going to do a review on the film based on the lack of favorable reviews that film got,
Yeah.
which is kind of a bummer for, that crew and cast and Maggie Gyllenhaal. But who knows? Maybe we'll come back and do it at some point. Um, but I did not know her background as a talented musician and all of these other things. I just had no idea. So,
And
um,
her look
yeah,
in The Bride versus this, like,
yeah.
I would never have guessed.
And she was also in the HBO series Chernobyl, which I had seen,
Yeah, I
and
haven't
just
seen that.
it had been so long, and I just didn't recall her from it. But again, I think it maybe speaks to the fact that she's quite the chameleon, as you point
Yeah,
out.
she can
Yeah,
disappear in a role.
yeah. I would recommend this film to folks. This was where did I see this? Was it HBO Max? I can't remember now where we saw this film,
I
but
I saw it on Prime.
or maybe it was Prime. But if
Yeah.
you get your hands on it through one of the streamers or what have you, I would recommend it. I think, and certainly if you're into period piece films, as we've said with some others, like The Secret Agent was set in the 70s and so forth. This
A
one's going a little
and
further back.
if you're a fan of Shakespeare,
Absolutely.
even though it's fiction, there's a lot of bits that are true.
Right. But I just love what Maggie O'Farrell does with it, right? She takes these kind of little nuggets and then just creates this
Yeah.
fictionalized story that I find quite fascinating. And frankly, based on, I'm sure, the research that she did extensively, what is likely to have been the case? We'll never know for sure.
See,
But
that's why I think the language issues, and I only pointed out a couple. There was like at least half a dozen or more. That I think that's why. I think I was expecting too much
mm,
because of it's kind of like Ryan Coogler on Sinners. He had like twin experts,
right.
Asian experts from the period, just people that knew the material. So when you know the material so well, how do you make kind of silly mistakes, in my opinion?
Well, again, I think it's the attempt to, and frankly, it worked, right, based on the ratings and the success.
Right.
But I think it's the attempt to appeal to a broader audience because I think I don't know why, but Mel Gibson's Hamlet sticks out.
Yeah.
That was one, and there's been so many iterations of it, but that's not the easiest material to consume.
No, and Mel Gibson was really heavily criticized back when it came out.
Listen, I it's a fantastic
I
performance.
thought it was great.
It's a great version of Hamlet.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And he went to schools to teach kids about Hamlet.
Again, separating art from artists and all of the whole thing, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. So I would recommend this one for the reasons I've stated and some of what you've said, like if you're a fan of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But again, going in knowing like if you're going to go in and like Mike and be prone to picking nits with things like the dialogue, just know going in, it's a bit of a, different version of that.
But I say that, I still enjoyed it. It didn't take me out of the story. I was just, it's just something I was critical of.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that 84 is about right.
About where you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, really enjoyable again, and I'm glad that we did it not only to get closer to finishing our Oscar reviews this year, but to learn more about. I always like doing this deep dive and learning more about the cast and the crew and what goes into the making of these films. That's something that we're always trying to promote, and you've said too on the podcast more than once is we may be critical of films, and we hope that we're trying to at least provide some why, and it's just our opinion at the end of the day. But you always point out, we certainly it's to take nothing away from the labor that goes into this from everybody that touches it, no matter what the role is in front of and behind the camera. We support and promote that, but I can't be easy to be on the other end of the critical reception that
Correct.
isn't so favorable, right?
Correct. I say things and I'm like, geez, if I was in it, I would hate this guy.
Yeah.
But, I've been in plays that got reviewed and they didn't have great things to say about me. It's just part of it. It's just, and again, I'm not critical of any single person. It's just a
Right.
few
It's the
things.
final product.
But I don't think, Dan, you or I would have seen this film if it hadn't been nominated. That's the one
Yeah.
vote in favor of it being in the top 10.
Right.
Is the fact that I wouldn't have seen it otherwise.
I agree with that. And I, again, love Emily Watson. She was great in this. It was nice to see her again. And
The
so, anyways,
Boxer, isn't that
the
where we know
Boxer.
her from?
Absolutely, her and
Daniel
Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis.
Yes, yes. And she's often mistaken for being Irish, and she's not.
Yeah.
But if you watch The Boxer, you'll know why we say that. But yeah, great cast up and down. And again, the directing, the story, everything was top notch here. So this was an enjoyable. I mean, it's a tough watch,
right?
At times, it's a very tough watch, but it's great art. So another good film here. Again, I see why it was nominated for Best Picture. All right, Mike, that's going to do it for the Oscar review of Hamnet. I do want to say, Mike, all of the folks who continue to support the podcast, whether that be through watching the videos, downloading the episodes on wherever you get your podcast, we see you and we're grateful and we thank you. We've gotten some additional supporters and subscribers to the podcast, which, if you are so inclined and of the means and you want to support the podcast monetarily, you can certainly do that. We'd be deeply appreciative. There's a link in the show notes of every episode, and you can get it from our website and elsewhere, where there's a link to support the show, and you can choose a certain level, and it really helps Mike and I continue to do what we do and bring you weekly content like we do. So don't ever think for a moment we take that for granted. And I do want to say, Mike, a couple of recent new subscribers to the YouTube channel. Lisa, we've got Nick, Chris, Eric, if I'm saying that correctly, Craig. I want to give a special shout out to Haywood, if you're listening. Thanks for subscribing to the Oh Brother Podcast YouTube channel. And I did reciprocate and subscribe to your channel too. For the record, I want to put that out there. But we see you. It's often difficult because we can't necessarily directly interact with you in that way, but you can interact with us. You can drop comments on the videos. There's a link also in the audio version of the podcast, those episodes, that you can send us a text message and communicate with us that way. We love to hear from everybody, whether it's constructive, critical feedback or positive comments, whatever the case may be. We definitely enjoy that. Just keep it respectful and keep it clean and all those things. That's all we'd ask, but keep it coming, I guess, is the point here. So, Mike, anything to add to that?
No, just I want to, tip my hat to you to responding to people. I don't get notifications when there's a comment. So I usually hear it from you. You'll say, hey, check out this comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the ones that are educational in the sense that they will bring in some additional knowledge that we just weren't aware of, or just maybe we didn't dive deep enough, or whatever the case, or we got something wrong and they're correcting us.
Right.
We're certainly open to all of that. But yeah, I try to pass that on to Mike so that he can either weigh in or at least, stay aware of the engagement. So, yeah, that's it, Mike. That's going to do it for the Hamnet episode here. We roll on to the last final review, which is Marty Supreme. That'll be coming next, folks. But that's going to do it for another episode of the Oh Brother Podcast. I've been your host, Dan Smith. Alongside me, as always, of course, my brother from the same mother, Mike Smith. And we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.